And then once we get the geotechnical information, it'll take a week or two before we have the design finalized and a final quote that I'll be able to present the board. So it'll probably be the February meeting before I can make a report on an updated cost. Kind of along the same lines, I have been working with the Public Works Director, Mr. McDonald at Merriam. One of the questions that Max Rickey had was we anticipate having a lot, when we pull the wall down, a lot of the big slab rock is already broken and will end up more or less just as riprap. A lot of storage on our property for the riprap. We're going to store the good slabs that we can salvage from the site, but as it breaks up, we don't have a great place to store that. So I reached out to Mr. McDonald with the city to see if they could use the rock, and he indicated that they would be happy to take it. So we've just had some discussions following up on the timing and the anticipated volume, but I mean, that'll be a win-win because otherwise Max Rickey's going to have to haul it off. It'll probably be several miles, and we'd get big hauling costs. So if they can take it someplace in town, that's good and cheaper for us, and then it'll give the city some material they can hopefully use on future projects. So those are my updates.
Okay, Steve, I had one question. I think the CIP for 2021, you had a riprap. Would any of that broken rock be used?
Let me see if I can find it. I'll look for that.
I believe it was it was right next to next to the storage mart on the east
yes.
and west side.
Max Rickey about that. The problem with that location is accessing it.
Okay.
So I'll come up with I'll go back and review my notes on that project, Eric, then get back with you on that one.
Is there any other questions? Okay.
Just one question. The things that are under completed with 2019 funds, I guess all that's been paid for.
That's correct. Those were projects. Those were mainly holes that were filled that were along the creek. I identified those back in July or August of 2019, and since we had funding at that point, the board went ahead and directed that those holes be filled using the funding you had available at the time, instead of waiting 6 months until you had a new fiscal year.
Okay.
Any other questions or concerns? Okay, we'll move on to the attorney report. Jim?
Thank you. This is Jim Orr, counsel for the Drainage District. The first thing I have is the resolution setting our meetings for next year that is in your packet. And I'd ask for a motion and a vote to approve the resolution establishing the meeting times. My only comment would be that this would last throughout the year, unless, of course, we can go back to in-person meetings. But I think for the time being, we'll just assume they're going to be virtual and hope for the best and hope that we can return to in-person meetings before too awfully long. So I'd ask for a vote to approve that resolution so that we can publish it and therefore publicize our meetings for the coming year.
This is Eric Jackson. I know that I received a copy of the resolution, and I believe the other board members received a copy as well. That said, is there any questions or concerns regarding the resolution at hand? Okay. That being said, or not said, do I hear a motion to approve the resolution presented by Mr. Orr.
This is Sam Mateer. I move that we accept the resolution establishing meeting times as provided by Mr. Orr.
Jerry
And do
Becker,
I-
I second the motion.
Okay. Motion made in second. All in favor, announce your vote.
This is Sam Mateer. I vote aye.
Jerry Becker, I vote aye.
And Eric Jackson, I vote aye. So, Rebecca, I will make sure that I include this to you to be published in the Legal Ledger. I believe it's for the next 2 consecutive weeks.
Perfect.
Okay.
The only thing this is Jim Orr. The only thing I'd add is, Rebecca, we need to check and make sure we have the current resolution number. That's, I think, 2020-4 or 5, something like that. But if you could check that, that'd be great.
Right, I will.
Okay, super. The other issue I had was just to report back about insurance. I have been in contact with Tom DeMasters, our insurance agent, and he tells me he has forwarded my question about making sure we're in compliance with the underwriter's concerns. To refresh everyone's memory, the underwriter required, for example, that we be an additional insured on the policy of insurance of Riki, and we are. I've provided that information to them. But out of an abundance of caution, I've asked Tom, our agent, to double check with the underwriter and see what, if anything else, that they would require or recommend that we do. And I talked to Tom about this, and he's communicating with the underwriter. As soon as he has an answer from them, he'll let me know. So hopefully I'll have something to report back at the next meeting.
Very good.
And that's all I have. By the way, I don't know if you can see me. I've lost the video feed completely, so I don't know. If I disappear for a minute, I may try and log back in.
I can see you just fine.
Yeah, you've never looked better, Mr. Orr.
Great, thanks.
Okay, moving right along, let's go to John with the accountant report.
Good evening, it's John Martin, District CPA. I've worked with Rebecca and I talked last week on some items. I think through the end of November, your total expenditures were about $142,000 below what your budget was. So what I would think we want to be able to do after we get the December expenditures in at the January meeting is look at what the remaining availability is for encumbering funds, because then I was talking with Steve today as well, that there's some projects that you'd want to encumber some funds for that would be done in 2021 that are under design right now. And when Steve and I was talking, he was going to recommend, and I would as well, that we just encumber those funds and not transfer those into the emergency fund, that those would be more readily available to pay for those expenses out of the encumbrance of the general fund.
Very good.
This is Sam Mateer. Could you kind of tell me what the rules are for encumbering?
When you have an encumbrance, you would have an identifiable expense that you had that you would want to reserve a portion of your current available budget for. So you've identified a project that you have design work going on, and so you'd be able to encumber for those expenditures that you would have for anticipated into the next year.
So I guess this would affect what the Johnson County allows us to do then.
It's under the state budget law, yes. Not Johnson County, but the state budget law, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Roth, I presume then that is that for the next meeting, the December meeting, that we need to act on that? First of all, were you saying we have to act on that in the December meeting, Mr. Martin?
No, in January.
Oh, in January. Okay.
Yeah, we'd be able to determine what the actual expenses are for 2020, and then see how much budget room was still available to encumber towards the projects that you're committed to for completing in 2021 that are under design right now.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So, Mr. Roth, I guess that means that you'll come up with some ideas for us by January.
Yes, we can. Yeah, we can work off the list we have, and hopefully we'll have a slightly better number than the $175,000 that I presented at the last meeting for the new section of wall just south of Johnson Drive.
Okay.
That was.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Well, then, if there's no other questions for John, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of already takes care of item number 4. That'll be deferred until January. And so we can move on to number 5 of approval of bills presented for payment. And I had a couple things. And I think it's just a couple typos, or either I'm not tracking. First thing is the invoice for Benish I show is $1,660, and on the email it was $1,600. And then for HPG Enterprises, I'm showing the invoice is $120 instead of $160. So unless I'm not reading that right, I just want to identify that so when we approve bills for payment that we're actually approving what the invoices are saying.
Sure, I just want to look at the invoices real quick and I can tell you.
Okay.
Let's see, HPG
120.
120 as on the invoice. And Benish is 1660, you're correct. It was a typo in the email.
Okay. And and then we all have Mr. Orr's invoice for it was.
I don't believe I have Mr. Orr's invoice.
I don't either.
Okay.
It was 544.40.
I don't have that right in front of me. That sounds correct, Eric.
Yeah. Jim, is it required that they actually have it in front of them, or is it verbally stated to them? Is that okay?
Well, there's a conflict of interest for me maybe there. Hopefully not a serious one. I can wait till next month if you want to, but I don't think it's a problem. What the amount is. Rebecca,
I can email it to them right now.
Can you forward that right now?
Yep.
Yeah, please do.
That sounds good.
I feel more comfortable if they had it. I think you really should take a look at it.
That sounds right. While we're doing that, we can see if there's any new business.
Something just kind of caught my eye as far as our emergency funds. We have our funds split up among several banks. I noticed one of the funds is with Bank of China, and I'm wondering if we have any obligation to make sure that they place our money with American banks that are owned by American companies. Is this an important thing, or? Bank of China is owned by a corporation in Beijing.
Jim Orr. There are general requirements that you place your money with local banks. Essentially, I'm greatly simplifying, unless there isn't a bank that has the facility that we need. Actually, Sam, you raised a question that I think is probably completely novel. I can certainly look into that. With the sweep accounts, our money is technically deposited with an American bank. They have corresponding arrangements with other banks across the country. I'm surprised that Bank of China is included in that. I didn't notice that in the list, but I'll take a look at that. They presumably are insured by the FDIC because that's the nature of a sweep account. But we probably ought to maybe talk to the bank and maybe even talk to the banking commission a little bit about that. I just have never had a situation where a foreign-owned bank was involved in a sweep account, and the whole concept is still relatively new, so that I don't know of any authority, for example, under Kansas law that really addresses that one way or the other. John, do you have any knowledge of foreign banks being involved in sweep accounts?
I'll have to look at that. That's one that's new to me as well. So I'll have to look at that.
They are FDIC insured.
So everyone involved in the sweep account is to be FDIC insured. That's our arrangement with our bank. And that's how the sweep accounts generally work. That's the purpose of them. I guess maybe this is partly for the public, is that no individual bank can hold more than $250,000 and have it be insured, but they can swap out accounts with other banks so that the deposits are shared among a number of banks electronically, and therefore the drainage district can have insurance up to the full amount of over $1 million. But because no one bank is actually holding more than $250,000. So the whole purpose of it is to maintain insurance. But I also have to confess I know nothing about the Bank of China other than what you've just said, Sam.
Thank you.